I have a belief that only one candidate between Haley and Scott will make it to South Carolina. And then if either of them doesn't place a strong second, that they're both done. Tell me, do you agree with that? Or what's your take on how South Carolina plays out in this process for those two candidates specifically?
Early on, I would have said Tim Scott would have won the state over Nikki. Not ultimately. I think Trump wins the state. But Tim Scott would have finished second or third because he had an apparatus in place. His name was still top of mind. He just ran an election. Nikki's been gone for a long time. She didn't leave on the best of terms. Some people didn't like her all that much. The legislature doesn't like her. That's a badge of honor for many. So I don't know how that plays. But right now, I think Nikki stands the best chance of winning the state based on where the polls are.
But do you think they both make it?
I think what I think is Nikki would do it when it came to, even if she knows she's going to lose, to say, I'm for the people, to say, I'm going to put up the good fight. She'd stay in it. I don't think Tim would stay in it if he's that far down in the polls.
Amber, let me ask you this. How do you think Republicans are doing when it comes to messaging the impeachment inquiry?
Not great. I just don't feel like they've really conveyed directly to America what the collective evidence is that's caused them to go this direction. And then, of course, Speaker McCarthy has this issue with the perceived hypocrisy of telling Nancy Pelosi that she needed to get a full vote from the House, but then going ahead and unilaterally launching his own impeachment inquiry. Now, to be fair, his response to that was sort of like the Mitch McConnell to Harry Reid response, which was, hey, you set the precedent, so now I'm going to follow it. And I'm totally fine with that. I have no issue given the left's overreach. But I mean, that's the perception. And he had a really good moment with a reporter where he did sort of push her back on her heels as he listed out all of the pieces of circumstantial evidence that Republicans had more questions about. And I support the impeachment inquiry, but I just don't think it's breaking through. And part of that is, of course, the media's completely in bed with the Democrats.
There's no evidence.
But that's always the case, right? Republicans always have to do, exponentially better messaging in order for their points to get through.
So, Hogan, the thing is, I agree with everything that Amber said. Like, I've made this case. We've had Jim Jordan on the program. We've had Keith Self, the congressman. I'm like, guys, hold up a piece of paper and say, here's the bank records. Here's Joe Biden. Here's Hunter. Like, if you cannot explain it like that, people aren't going to buy into it. And I get it. We keep hearing about the SARS form. But if you want me to decide whether I think he's guilty or not, you can't just tell me you have evidence. You need to show it to me, right? This is like a jury. Yeah. So what do you think they need to do? And do you agree with that? Because I get it. There is a lot of evidence, but it's like evidence versus conviction.
Yeah. I disagree slightly in this way because Amber's right. What we're up against, obviously, the bar for us is way higher than their bar for anything as it relates to media. From June 8th to July 18th, the mainstream media, the legacy media, covered the Donald Trump indictment for 527 minutes. From that same time period, Hunter and Joe Biden, June 8th to July 18th, 0 minutes. So if a tree falls in a forest, people hear it. Here's how I think they shift the narrative. I think what they need to do is take the show on the road. I think they need to go local. I think they need to go into the districts where you have fence sitters. You have Ken Bucks, for example, and you go to his people and you say, here's the evidence, guys. Here's what we see. And it's difficult to fight back when the media writ large uses the term no evidence.
Right.
When there's tons of it everywhere. And this whole idea that it's circumstantial. If I walk into a room with a bloody shirt and I have a handgun in my hand, bloody fingerprints all over it, my hand's bloody, you didn't see me do anything. But that's circumstantial.
That's right.
And I'm telling you, the Biden's hands are bloody here. And I would argue it's not going to be just a political problem in the end. I think it's going to be a legal problem if the Republicans play their cards right.
You know, it's interesting, Amber, because to Hogan's point, the Republicans, the best messaging they had in the last 2 years is when they went to the border, they brought the show down there and they said, here's what's happening. And the media was forced to cover it. I agree with Hogan. You've got to mix it up. You can't just do a couple interviews on Fox and think that everyone gets it.
Exactly. It's been like the James Comer show all over Fox News for the past 3 months. And, he goes on there and he makes his case well, but you're not really capturing the people that you need to capture. The people who are watching Fox already know that the Bidens are corrupt, right? And the other problem is that so much of this gets mired in the questions about Hunter Biden's drug use and his stuff with the prostitution. And people tend to lump all of that sort of salacious behavior together with the corruption allegations. And the corruption allegations maybe are not as sexy, for lack of a better term. I don't think anything Hunter Biden does is sexy, but you know what I mean? It's not as capturing to the viewer. I would love to see sort of what you were saying, Sean, with laying out the bank records. Like, I want to see the web of the different offshore bank accounts and the shell companies and where the money is flowing through. Give me an infographic. Give me the It's Always Sunny conspiracy board. Like, that's what I want to see. I really like to see the visuals here. Visuals are always a communicator's best friend.
We need to put it into a Venn diagram on the side of a school bus, and that way Kamala Harris would have to talk about it.
Right, she loves the yellow school bus.
Diagrams in school bus.
But see, this is the thing. Like, as a guy that is I watch every episode of like Law and Order SVU, Law and Order Criminal Intent, and they always, it's like, here's the case, and they make it, and everyone at the end says, okay, this is why we are going to convict you or find you guilty. I think Republicans need to get out there, and whether it's on the side of a school bus or on a billboard, make the case to the American people that this is why Hunter's we all get it. He's a bad dude that has done some nefarious stuff, shady stuff, illegal stuff. But you have to show that Biden, the president, was complicit.
Yeah.
And I think as well, the Republicans kind of backed themselves into a corner here, because they did what I thought originally was actually a good strategy. Was they sort of went with the drip, drip, drip method, right? They released little by little, and it was like every day there was a new piece of evidence that they were uncovering about the Bidens and sharing with the public, at least verbally, not visually. And that made it so a lot of people couldn't really ignore it, because the media would say, oh, no evidence. Then the Republicans would come out the next day and say, well, here's another piece. We've got it right here. But at some point, you have to go back and thread it all together, right? You have to go back and start from the beginning and list them all out, put them into a clear picture so that people can see the whole thing together, as opposed to expecting everybody to follow a 2-month drip, drip, drip.
Great.
So let me ask you this. If you had to look in a crystal ball, where do you think this thing ends up? Do you think that the House actually votes? And what I worry about more than anything else is, do these holdout members actually support it? Hogan?
I don't know if they're going to support it, but I think the pressure is going to mount if
but
they
don't
actually...
you wait, hold on. If they don't, isn't that a huge failure? If the House...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They need to support it. And McCarthy needs to make sure this proceeds forward. Otherwise, it's going to land as though nothing happened.
Right.
That Hunter and Joe were not in business together, when everyone knows the evidence is overwhelming that they were. So the story's changed from the White House. Everyone's seen this. It comes out the drip, drip, as Amber just pointed out. But you're not going to find a check that says to Hunter and Joe Biden for bribery and other schemes, signed Burisma. You're just not.